Mr. Sam Allen,
Mate,
welcome.
thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You are a man of many talents, as it were. So what have we got? We got builder,
Yep.
the bearded coach.
Yep.
You've just had a new book come out.
I certainly have.
Is there anything I'm missing?
Property,
Property, yep.
security. I've done it all.
So I don't know, for anyone that is intrigued about what the bearded coach is, I don't know if you want to give like a little explanation.
Yeah. So the bearded coach started December. It's an idea that I've been having for since February of 2021. It's originated from when I won custody of my daughter. Now, the whole time I was going through the process of court and going through the battle and, all the steps of trying to show that the reasons why I wanted my daughter and the reasons why it was appropriate for me to have my daughter. The whole time, like you do with most things, you look for cases similar. You look for a win. You look for something to reflect onto and to give you that little bit of hope. And there was nothing out there. The wins for blokes in court just weren't a thing. So after I'd gone through the whole 16-month process, the £18,000 I had to spend on legal fees and courts and solicitors, I was like, right, I need to put something out there to give men some hope, to show them a way of doing it. But not only that, to be able to try to help them achieve their end goal without having to spend 18 grand like what I had. So I was like, right, I've got the idea, bearded coach. I'm going to put some success stories out there, not just on dads wanting their kids, but on business, life, success, depression, men's mental health, everything you can sort of cover. So I've got an outlet which I can put some success stories out, but how can I take those success stories and how can I actually offer somebody something more? How can I actually physically, it's all well and good. You've got some amazing people out there talking about mental health. You've got the likes of, Paddy the Baddy, Tyson Fury, big names talking about mental health, talking about it's okay to not be okay and all the rest of it. How can I go over and above that? How can I offer something more? So when I was going through court and all the process of trying to get my daughter, I actually went and got some help and got some life coaching because I was struggling with my own mental health and I was struggling to keep on top of things, and I was really lethargic. I was really short and snappy. There was obvious signs out there that I wasn't coping very well. So I started seeing this guy called Tom Nash. Tom Nash is Mr. Divorce Coach, as he's known. And he helps people through the process of divorce, separation, blended families, co-parenting. So I went and started seeing him. Me and him started working on some things to deal with my mental health and to help me be the best dad that I can be and help me provide the life that I want for my daughter. And while we were going through the process, I sort of spoke to him and said about, the fact that I wanted to be able to put a success story out there for men when I'd got my end goal and when I'd got my daughter the best start for her life that I could. He was like, well, look, I'm starting up something called DCA, the Divorce Coaching Academy. He was like, why don't you come on, join our beta course, come and trial it, see what you think, and take part of the course. Because at the minute, there's no qualification out there for divorce and separation coaching. So these guys launched it. I've gone through the course. I've been doing that with them. Fantastic group. Really, really interesting course. Lots and lots of stuff there to learn. And that then is going to give me the ability to do the next step of what I want to do. The social media stuff, the clout, the spreading the word is all well and good, but it's only helping people so far. I want to be able to offer that next step. And that then leads on to the book. The book, one of the biggest things that helped me was learning to appreciate and to be grateful for the smaller things in life. Writing down my goals, writing down my achievements so I can see each step I was doing. So I started, the book only came about in Christmas, to be fair. I've always had an idea that I wanted to launch a book by the time I'm 30. But at the time, it was just one book that I wanted to do as a survival guide, effectively, like a men's survival guide, 18 to 30s. And it was going to be, well, it still is going to be, my life, but then with the science and the mythology and all the rest of it behind how I got through certain challenges in my life and how I overcame them. But then the bearded journal sort of sprung to mind, and I was like, why am I waiting until I'm 30 when actually people need help now? They need something that they can use to start dealing with their mental health now. You know, we are in an epidemic of men's mental health and men's issues. So that's where the bearded journal came about, and a book is there and it's designed, and I spent hours and hours sort of building it and developing it. So it's designed to hold yourself more self-accountable, you know, to force yourself to get up in the morning, to force yourself to go to the gym, to force yourself to go out for the run, to take that bit of care in yourself. Like I said, to hold you, you know, get you more grateful for the smaller things in life, you know, a stranger smiling at you on a bus, something that 9 times out of 10 you overlook. But in today's society, when people are so anti each other, you know, the love of the world is not there anymore. Just having somebody smile at you when you're walking down the street or on the bus or on the tube is a big thing. You know, it doesn't happen very often anymore. Be grateful for it. You know, just the fact you're waking up in the morning is a big thing. You know, be grateful for it. And it's so many different things we overlook. So that was sort of another aspect of it. And then realizing as well within the book just how powerful we are as human beings. Just the fact that whatever we put our mind to, we are capable of achieving. I mean, we're both young lads, and, you know, without blowing our own trumpets, we've achieved lots. Now, the only reason we've got to where we are and we've achieved what we have is because we've put our mind to it. No matter what's coming into our path, we've said, no, I can overcome this. I can be better than this. I can achieve more than this. That's not going to stop me. That's not going to hold me back. So that's the overall idea of the book and what I wanted it to do. And then the book, the podcast, and everything else that I'm doing as well feeds into the second book and then the third book and finally on to the fourth. So that is a brief overview of the Bearded Coach and what it's all about for you.
Perfect. And that book it's only available on Amazon, isn't it?
It's available on Amazon or directly through me on my Instagram page. If people want to drop me a...
No, I actually picked a copy up when it came out.
Good man. That's what I like to
had
hear.
to read through it. It's really good. It's really good. I gifted it to someone who needed it more than myself. And I believe they are very grateful for what's in it.
Yeah.
And using that.
It's a very simple book. I didn't want to put too much into it. I didn't want to overload it. I wanted it to be simple because as men, we are simple creatures.
Yeah.
You know, something overcomplicates, especially early in the morning when sort of you're going to sit down and do your journaling and do your affirmations. Something's a bit too overcomplicated and a bit too in your face. It's going to put people off. And I didn't want that. I wanted it to be very easily accessible and usable for everybody. So that's why I've kept it sort of as minimalistic as I can, but to try and keep that effectiveness.
I think it works well like that because nowadays the attention span of everyone is so little compared to what it used to be. And I'd say like TikTok's got a lot to do with that. It's just like 6-second videos, like scroll. And if something's not catching your eye in like 3 seconds, scroll. And simplicity is a lot easier for especially like your target audience and my target audience to just quickly jump into, opposed to having to digest loads of stuff, then go into the end. So I think it's a really good way that you've laid the book out. It's just a little bit than your notes, which is good. And you've mentioned obviously it's going to go to like book 2, book 3, book 4. Do you know what those will be? Will they be like, again, like journal formats or? No.
So book 2 is it's going to be short stories of successful people.
Okay.
Which is why I'm doing the podcasts as well. So the podcasts are basically going to feed into book 2. So what I wanted to do is to take different snippets from each of the podcasts, from each of the conversations and the stories that I'm having with people, and take snippets of a challenge they've faced and how they've overcome it. And then from their format of how they overcome it, form that into effectively another form of a self-help guide, but to help people level up. So the first book is there to help you create balance, create peace of mind, and to gain a greater understanding of yourself. The second book is to start leveling up. The third book, I'm not 100% certain on where I'm going with it yet. It's a long way from release yet. I've got a few different ideas and that floating around. But at the same sort of time, I'm trying to watch society as a whole to see what the need is. The need is always changing, and it's always, different things. A better and a more solid foundation for mental health is still the key element. But society is changing things very, very quickly at the minute. So at the minute on book 3, I'm not 100% certain as to how I'm approaching that. And then book 4 is that last level up. This is some of the challenges you're going to face 18 to 30. This is how I got over them. This is the mythology and the science behind it. Take what you want from this and, create your own path.
For anyone that does want to find your podcast, if you want to give it a little shout out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you, mate. So yeah, anybody that's looking to go and check out the podcast, if you head over to YouTube, to Apple Podcasts, to Amazon, or to Spotify, and check us out on there. It's called The Bearded Way of Life, and you'll find me on YouTube underneath The Bearded Coach.
And going right back to the beginning, you mentioned when you were battling for custody for your daughter, and you spent 18 grand basically, and what was that, 16 months or so. Is that the average, or like of what someone would spend in that case?
Court costs are horrific.
Yeah,
absolutely horrific. And to give you a bit of a sort of way to judge the money, for my final court hearing, my barrister alone was £2,500 for the court hearing. Yeah, the court hearing lasted 4 minutes. He earned £2,500 in 4 minutes. The fees are astronomical. If you can find a good solicitor, and my solicitors were amazing, to be fair, and I probably did go overkill on a few different things, but my standpoint was, this is my daughter's life. This is my daughter's future. I either go wholehearted to give her the best possible chance in life, or I don't. What's the point in bothering if I'm not going to do absolutely everything I can to make sure she's all right? So I probably did spend a bit more than what I needed to, but it is expensive. It is very, very expensive. I know people that have spent 3 times the amount because their ex-partner, their child's mother, has fought, has not turned up to court, has missed court dates, has thrown things back, has put in false allegations, and they've ended up 30, 60, 70,000 pounds in court fees and legal fees. I also know people on the other end of the scale who've still got great outcomes, and they've got access to their child, or they've got custody of their child, and they've gone and spent £4,000. So it's difficult to put a price tag on what you can spend. My biggest suggestion to anybody would be approach a coach. Get a divorce and separation coach, get a life coach, get a mental wellness coach, because every time you ring up your solicitor, you're getting charged £250 an hour, for example. Yeah, you're going to pay a life coach or a specific area coach significantly less money. And 9 times out of 10, when you ring up the solicitor, you're ringing them up because your anxiety's gone into overload, and you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, have I filled out this paperwork right? Have I done this right? What's happening? Why haven't I heard back? What's the next step? What's the next process? You're asking simple questions, but because you don't know who to turn to and you've just got your solicitor there in front of you, that's who you go to immediately. So that's always, anybody going through any legal battle or just anything in life, coaches I cannot sing enough praise about. They are a piece of valid and very, very useful resource that isn't utilised enough. And me and you know a few different ones. You've got George, you've got Neil. I've already name dropped Tom Nash. I'm going to have messages now from George and Neil like, cheers for that. But they're all absolutely fantastic guys, and they should be utilised, significantly more useful and cheaper than a solicitor.
100%. And with that, obviously, each scenario is different, as you say, in terms of money. With the 16 months period that you were going through it, was there a lot of like bumps in the road, or was that like quite a straightforward?
So my scenario, my case was very different from most. My daughter's mum wasn't interested. The whole reason I ended up with my daughter in the first place was her mum abandoned her and disappeared off to start a different life, effectively, and wasn't interested in contact, wasn't interested in seeing my daughter, wasn't interested in putting my daughter first, and I didn't get a lot of backlash or a lot thrown back from her. In the end, we only ended up with 2 court dates. It was supposed to be 3. We only ended up with 2. The first one she turned up to, but showed very little interest. What was agreed during the court hearing, she didn't keep to, she didn't agree to. Didn't bother turning up to mediation. In some way, as much as it's not fortunate for my daughter, it was fortunate for my bank account, because if she'd have caused a lot more stir and kicked up more of a fuss, it would have gone on for a lot longer. 16 months from the start of mediation, which is where we were supposed to start at, to a final hearing is very, very short period of time. I know people that have fought for 3, 4, 5 years to get the same outcome or less of an outcome, and hence have spent a significant amount more money. So, yeah, it's 16 months. I was lucky, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking, wow, 16 months is a long time, and especially for the situation you were in.
Oh, it is massively. Fortunately, I did have my daughter the whole time, which made life easier. I was battling for things, but I had my daughter with me the whole way, which made it a lot easier. There's a lot of dads out there who don't have their kids, don't have access to their kids, aren't allowed to see their kids, and they're having to spend 3 or 4 years in court trying to get to see their children. And it's purely because their partner is being vicious and saying, nope, you're not coming to see your kids. Don't want you there. Take me to court. Something I'm seeing and I'm hearing far too often now, is partners turning around saying, no, you want to see your kids? Take me to court. And it's not fair. It shouldn't be like that.
And you've been through that system now, so you know firsthand how it favours like who, and through what you went through, how would you say the system and the people in it favour the father or the mother? So
the legal system itself has changed significantly. You go back 5-6 years and it was very, very anti-men. The system itself has changed, and they now value fathers a lot more than what they did. But it's people within the system itself that don't. Now, and it's a really, really long story, the build-up of what led to going to court with to get access to my daughter and to get custody of my daughter. But during the lead up to her mum abandoning her and disappearing, her mum, my daughter's mum, got very, very domestically abusive towards me. And when we first sat down with the solicitor and I said, right, this is the story, this is what's happened, here's all my paperwork, here's all the messages, all the correspondence, all the rest of it. It was her that initially turned around and went, Sam, you've been a victim of a serious case of domestic abuse here. And I was doing the typical man thing. Oh, no, I haven't. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. I can get on with it. And she was like, no. Like, seriously, you have. Like, we need to make this known. Then, like, the courts, the system need to know what you've gone through and what's actually happened. So as we started going through mediation and all the rest of it, and then like the mediators, fair enough, they were fantastic, really, really good. Probably did help the fact that my daughter's mum didn't turn up. So they were only sort of listening to me, but of course they then couldn't make a decision because there was nobody there to mediate with. So then passed us on to CAFCAS. Now, the first CAFCAS officer that I had is what is wrong with the system. And, you know, you sit down with CAFCAS, they have the file in front of you, they can sit and read through it all. You know, they come out, assess you on your parenting abilities, on your knowledge, on your house, on, you know, your kids' health, welfare, and all the rest of it. And when she was reading through the file, she was like, "Oh, domestic abuse." And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Oh, well, you're a big lad. You can get on with it." And I was like, it threw me completely. I was completely shell-shocked. And I was like, hold on, wait, what? I've had... And it was a real, you know, mind fuck for me at the time, because as a man, you don't want to accept that you're a victim of domestic abuse. It's a hard, bitter pill to swallow. And I'd had people going, you know, you were a victim, Sam. Like, whether you want to accept that or not, you've gone through some trauma. You need to deal with this. You need to process this in order to be able to move on and to be your best self and to be the best dad you can for your daughters. And I was like, right, okay, I'll come to terms with that. You know, I'll deal with that. Started working with Tom, like I said. And then, you know, to be processing that and going through the stages of dealing with a trauma, to then have somebody turning around and saying, well, you're a big lad, get on with it. It makes you feel very emasculated, and it threw me mentally backwards and put me behind on a few steps. And I couldn't believe it. And I came out of the meeting with her and I was like, just shell shocked. I couldn't even take into account what had actually gone on in the meeting. And sort of sat down and spoke with my mum and said to my mum what had been said. And my mum was like, no, you need to report this to CAFCAS. Like, that's not acceptable. They can't be turning around and saying that. Like, if the shoe was on the other foot, you know, and you were the one that had been domestically abusive towards your daughter's mum, then you'd be in prison. You'd be being locked up right now. You know, you'd have charges against you. And I was like, yeah, no, you know, you're right. You're right in what you're saying there. So rang up CAFCAS. And like I said, the systems themselves have moved on massively now. It's just, unfortunately, dinosaurs that are still in the system that are holding it back and stopping it being as fair as it can be and putting children first. But when I rang them up and spoke to CAFCAS and went through with them what had happened, they put a new officer out that was in charge of my case. The lady was absolutely lovely, absolutely brilliant. And even down to, like, once the final court hearing had been done and the case had been closed and signed off, she contacted me and said, you know, best of luck with your future. You're going to be a great dad. Like, you should be really proud of what you've done, what you've achieved. So the long way round of answering your question, no, the system has changed. It's much more fairer. It takes a much more better approach on dads and on their fathering ability and the fact that dads can be a sole parent. It's just people within the system that are letting it down and are holding it back from being truly fair.
Do you find when you are in the court, the mum is believed, like, to whatever she's said more than the dad?
I think a lot of that comes down to who you have on the day. On my final court date, like I said, she didn't turn up. I had 3 magistrates for the court hearing, which was great, to be fair, because it was 3 different perspectives to look over the one case. You know, because at the end of the day, that's all the court comes down to. It is just somebody's opinion on the evidence you're presenting, which is a very daunting prospect. I do think there are still people in the system that will take a sob story and the waterworks over cold hard evidence a lot more. But like I said, it is getting a lot better. The family courts have changed a lot. The 3 magistrates to overview one case was fantastic. You know, all 3 of them have different perspectives, have different life experiences, and it's well, it was the best possible outcome for me, but I also believe in my heart that it's the best possible outcome for my daughter that they came to, and they saw that by what I'd put forward and what I'd presented. So people, that's all it comes down to.
It just comes down to
people
who is there on the day, basically.
Unfortunately, it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be that it comes down to luck of the draw. But I still sort of do believe that is the system itself works now. It's just who you get on the day.
Yeah. So do you find how was like your mental health before like the case started? Did the case sort of worsen it?
I've always been one that's hid my demons away. Anybody that knows me and has known me for years will always know that I'm a happy-go-lucky, smiley guy. Never not in a good mood. Never not chatting away. That's just me as a person. The reality of me behind closed doors was very, very different. And for years, I'd battled on and off with different things and different demons. I've always managed to maintain my mental health very well. But it was just before. So I'll take you back to 2021. Now, I'd been going through issues with my daughter's mum. She'd been becoming more and more abusive. She'd driven wedges between me and my mum, me and my brother, and me and other members of the family, by falsifying messages, falsifying conversations and stuff. She'd gone out and got another phone and had conversations with herself, pretending it was me, and just generally turning everybody against me. So I fell out with masses of my family, and I'm a big family man. My family mean everything to me. And she knew the only way to sort of break me down was to drive wedges and split me up and isolate me. Now at the time there were two people that I was sort of turning to and residing in that were helping me to keep sane and to keep there and keep battling. And that was my nan and my dad. And I'd got to the stage where I didn't want to be in my own house. So I'd avoid being there. I'd come back maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'd go to sleep on the sofa for a few hours and I'd leave at 5 o'clock in the morning, so that I didn't have to be in the house. I didn't have to be there. And one day my dad had rang me up and he said, "Oh, can I come around and see your eldest, Paige?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine. What sort of time do you want to come round?" And he was like, "Oh, I'll pop up at 6. I'll pop round after I finished up for work." So I was like, yeah, that sounds. So went back to my house, and I knew he was coming, so I'd left the front door open so he could just walk in when he was ready. And I'm stood in the kitchen, and my eldest's mum is doing the usual, absolutely laying into me, calling me every name under the sun, telling me how worthless I am, how much of a piece of shit I am, launching stuff at me and all the rest of it. And I'm stood with my back to the door, and she's stood just round the side, so she couldn't see the door. I've heard my dad come in the front door, and he stood and watched for a second before walking in, and going, what the fuck is going on? Like, who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? And she sort of turned around quick as anything and was like, "Oh, hi Lee, how you doing? Like, you're right." And he was like, no, like, that doesn't wash with me. I've seen the reality of what's just gone on. Like, you've got a month, you need to find somewhere, you need to get out of my son's house. So he was the one that sort of put his foot down and was like, "No, this isn't going on anymore," because I couldn't bring myself to do it. Every time I'd say to her, "You need to find a house, you need to move out. This isn't your place. I put you in here temporary to stop you from being homeless. I can't have you in here. The house isn't safe. Like, it's been renovated to a stage where it's livable, but it still needs so much more work doing. You can't stay here. We're not together. We're not an item. I've merely done this to try to support my child." And she would just go, "Oh, well, you're going to make your kid homeless. How do you feel?" And as a dad, that's something I could never bring myself to do. So yeah, he gave her a month. She moved out, and we'd come to an arrangement that I would have my daughter from a Friday evening through to a Sunday morning. So I'd spend a few hours with my daughter, a couple of evenings, a couple of days, and then I'd drop her back to her. So the first weekend it came round to me having my daughter, pick my daughter up on the Friday night. We're going around to see various family members and that. take her home. We sat, watched a movie and that. She went to bed. Wake up on the Saturday morning, being absolutely bombarded with texts. Bring my daughter back. Bring my daughter back. She needs to be back now. I'm ringing the police. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And the trouble I had was I wasn't on the birth certificate at this point. Even though my daughter was coming up to a years old, I still wasn't on the birth certificate. So I had no choice. So I dropped my daughter back. And that was sort of the final point for me that my mental health really started to decline. So sort of powered through the Sunday, powered through the Monday, got through the Tuesday, and I had complete brain fog. I didn't want to be like in my hometown anymore. I didn't want to know anybody. I didn't want to speak to anybody. And I rang my nan up, and I was like, "No, I'm gonna go." And she was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I've packed a bag. I've packed the car. Like, I've got a course tomorrow morning. I'm doing the course, and then I'm just gonna disappear. Like, I can't cope with this anymore. I can't cope with being made out to be somebody that I'm not." I was like, nobody wants to listen to me. Nobody wants to hear like the truth and my story. I was like, I can't cope with this anymore. So I'm going to go. So I said to her, look, I'm going to finish this course and then I'm going to disappear off. I'm going to change my number. I'll ring you once I'm found somewhere and I'm settled to let you know that I'm all right and I'm safe, but I need to go and start fresh somewhere else. And she was like, no, don't do it, Sam. Like, I've supported her and all the rest of it. And she's always been amazing, bless her. But I'd made my decision. I couldn't cope with being made to be the enemy anymore. I couldn't cope with, all the manipulation, the lie, and the emotional trauma that she was putting on to me. So we got to the Wednesday, and halfway through Wednesday day, I was in the course and my phone was buzzing and buzzing away. And I was like, oh, sorry, can I step out for a minute? Like, I need to see what this phone call's about. And it was my oldest daughter's granddad. And he was ringing me up and he was like, have you seen Paige's mum? And I was like, no. And he was like, oh, well, she's gone to move into your friend's house. And I was like, no, she's not. And he was like, yeah, on this road. And I was like, no, she's not. And what she'd done, she dropped the kids round to her mum and dad's house, to my daughter's grandparents' house, and up sticks, left, thrown her phone away, deleted all her social media account, and run away. So a couple of days, I ended up at the house with the police. The police put her down as a missing person, gave me my daughter. They were like, look, we're happy with you. You're perfectly capable as a parent. You are her dad. So there we go. And yeah, she didn't turn up for 2 weeks. And at that point, it was sort of there was a lot of relief at that time. It was a very emotional time because it was sort of turn a full circle. So everybody had gone from believing her, not believing me, not understanding what I was going through in the actual situation itself, to all of a sudden realizing that actually what I'd been saying was the truth. I had been going through this domestic abuse. I had been going through this trauma and nobody wanted to believe me, and I still to this day believe that it was because I was the bloke. I was the man, People didn't want to believe that somebody like myself, big ginger bearded lump, could be domestically abused. And it went from everybody being very unsupportive and against me to all of a sudden everybody was like, shit, like trying to overcompensate because they realised that all that time that they'd not believed me, I had been telling the truth. So it really sort of span on itself. But at that point, I'd gone from feeling alone and isolated to all of a sudden I had all these people around me and I didn't want it. I didn't want to be surrounded by all these people. I needed time to process this all myself. And I knew I had to get sort of straight in with solicitors and stuff like that, because even down to things like I couldn't go and get a prescription for my daughter's medical needs because I wasn't on the birth certificate. So I had straight away knew, right, you've got to put your own issues on a back step for a minute now, Sam. Like, you've got to step up. You've got to be the dad. You've got to support your daughter and put her needs first. Get this sorted. Once that's sorted, then you can process and deal with your own stuff. So yeah, it was tough. It was very tough. If it hadn't have been for the help of Tom, I don't think I'd have come out of it as well as I did, like mentally. I think I still would have had a lot of demons now. There was lots of people, you know, family, friends, my partner, involved that were hit with a lot of trauma as well, and still to this day struggle with certain things, and overcompensate on certain things because of, you know, guilt, you know, feelings, mental health, the processing of it all. But I now believe that my mental health as a whole is solid. I believe that nothing can beat me, as arrogant as that sounds. I've fortified my own mind so much that even when I feel myself getting overwhelmed and overstressed, I know what steps I've got to take to deal with it. You know, the last sort of 2 weeks, 3 weeks have been tough. My granddad passed away on Monday, bless him. Not Monday, sorry, Tuesday morning. And the first sort of week, so he had a stroke. He then developed like stages of Parkinson's and sort of forgot who everybody was. And I spent about 15, 16 hours with him in hospital. And the whole time everybody was sort of stressing and running around and panicking. And I had my moments, you know, I'd step outside, I'd have a little cry to myself, I'd pull myself back together. But my mental health now, I feel, is so fortified, so solid, so strong. It doesn't matter what gets thrown in front of me, I'll deal with it. I might take a moment, process it, come to terms with whatever's going on, but I don't do the thing that a lot of men do and bury our heads and try to ignore it and lock it away somewhere. I'll process it, I'll talk to anybody about it, because I think that's the best way forward to dealing with your mental health.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a beautiful thing about sort of individuals like yourself and me to a certain extent, who have gone through that pain to then come out, know that you're pretty mentally resilient now, and then use all that pain you went through to help others, which are like going into that or in the depths of it. And I think we need a lot more men, especially, to realize everything that's just gone on is a lesson that you can use to change people's lives in that way. I had a childhood friend who was kind of in a similar situation with yourself, where his ex-partner was using their kid as like a weapon against him, and who he's currently with is, you can see it's domestically abusive, but he's too in his thing to realize it. And a couple of years ago, it was before COVID happened, and I tried to sort of make him aware what was going on, and it's backfired massively. It, like, that shit hit the fan. Like, it was his partner's very manipulative, and as soon as she caught wind of what I was trying to make him aware of, it just, went crazy. And like, I'm going to send all these people around your house to beat you up and all this crap. And I was trying to get my mate out of a situation which you can see is really bad, but they're stuck in it. And when you're stuck in it, you don't see it. And yeah, in the end, I had to walk away because it was getting that bad for me, not only him. I was like, I can't like sink in this shit with you. Yeah. And that's tough to do that, to leave someone like that.
Oh, it is. You know, the statistic on it is that somebody that's being domestically abused will return to the abuser 7 times before they finally leave. And it's because of that thing that is becoming so big now and so much more to light, of coercive control. It's horrific. And there's so many people still out there that haven't heard of it. You know, don't get me wrong, I think we're getting into very dangerous territory at the minute. You know, there's a lot of terms that are being thrown around far too much. You know, narcissist, everyone gets called a narcissist nowadays. It's fucking ridiculous, to be honest. Again, the actual statistic of it, less than 5% of the world are true narcissists. Everybody has some narcissistic tendencies. You know, we're humans. We're going out there and doing things for ourselves or for loved ones. that's the whole idea of life. You know, you're fighting, you know, you're going out, you're slaving at work, doing whatever you're doing to feed yourself or your family. That everybody has narcissistic traits. Everybody loves a little bit of an ego boost. But a true narcissist is so rare. So rare. And it's a term that's thrown around far too easily nowadays. And it's because people don't understand what a true narcissist is. You know, toxic masculinity is another one.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Why is being a man and embracing being a man, embracing your heritage, your roots, you know, who you are as a person? Why is that toxic masculinity? Why is being masculine toxic? It's not. It's absolute bollocks, you know. But there's so much that's being thrown around far too lightly now. But something that people do need to be more aware of is coercive control. It's a very, very nasty form of domestic abuse. You know, and other than physically murdering somebody, I would say it is the next most dangerous form of abuse.
That's an old relationship which I used to be in was that, and it was shit. It's I don't know about yourself when you were with your ex-partner. It was just you're almost scared to leave, like I found in my situation. And I don't know if you've heard of like reactive abuse. So like they give it and then it gets to the point where you start to, and then it's just like constant backwards and forwards. Yeah. And that's what it turned into for me. So it was never physical. It was, again, like coercive, like mental. And it was degrading. Like for both of us in the end, it was horrendous. And if they're watching, by the off chance, I hope you're very happy and I hope you're doing well in life. But that was not a good time for both of us. It was, yeah. And I was scared to leave. There was like, I was witnessing a fake rape allegation going to the police. And that just does shit to your mind. And you're like, what? Why am I here?
Oh, wholeheartedly. A friend of mine has just been cleared of a fake rape allegation, and her whole thing was coercive control. She couldn't control him. He was too aware of coercive control and put too many blockades in to let her control him. So her last final sort of step was, right, I'll make a rape claim. And it destroyed him for a long time. Even now, he's so scared of, you know, trying to help somebody, trying to do something, showing too much affection or emotion towards like a female, because he's terrified that there'll be another claim out there. He's one of the nicest blokes I've ever met in my life. He's a massive softie, you know, looks like an animal, you know, big old lump covered in tattoos, but he's the softest, nicest, most kind-hearted guy going. And when he first said about the allegation had been made and he'd been arrested, I straight away, no, you've not done it. You've not got that in you to do that. You know, but it destroyed him. It ate him alive. He upsticked and changed his life totally because he couldn't cope with things in the area that the allegation was made, reminding him of that allegation.
Yeah, I mean, so the allegation where I wasn't accused. It was an old person she was acquainted with, like well before me, and at that time in my life, because it was going through coercive control and all of that, and I didn't really have a handle on anger especially. I was like a loose cannon in terms of she would point and fire me and I'm like, right, I'm going to go fucking kill him. I'm going to go and get a car. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to kill him. And it's like a lot of voice in my head was like, don't do this, man. Yeah. And it's the importance of men especially to understand how much power they have, but learn to fucking control it. Because if you don't, that's when shit gets really bad.
I said it on episode 2. The teetering point in a man's life is where you go from believing you have to stay dangerous to staying unpredictable. That is when your maturity changes. You realise you don't have to be dangerous in the the form that everybody views dangerous. You don't have to be dangerous as in physically be able to hold yourself, you know, being able to stand your own ground and all the rest of it. What makes you more effective as a man and more dangerous as a man is being unpredictable. You know, if you have people second guessing what you're doing all the time, that is a much more dangerous mindset. There's me using the words wrong. That is a much more effective mindset than having a dangerous. I need to be dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, I believe you should be dangerous, but this is like quoting Jordan Peterson. You should be dangerous, but you got to learn to control it.
Yeah. And that's what I mean by that, stay unpredictable. Yeah. You know, you can have that danger. You can have that ability in the background, but learn when it's needed, how to control it, how to maintain it, you know, how to control your own demons and all the rest of it. It's all that mindset thing again, isn't it?
Yeah. And then it's all going back to like we've both been witness to kind of like false rape allegations, and it being with like the feminist movement, which they believe is like for women. Whoever's doing this, right, and you think it's a good idea to make an allegation, you are worsening the cause that you think you are standing for. Because the people that actually are victims of rape are going to be less likely believed when you have 100 false allegations to one real one. And it makes me angry a little bit to see so many false ones seen as like martyrs for the cause, and it's just be honest with yourself, be a good person.
Yeah, you don't have to one up somebody, you don't have to screw somebody over to think you've come out of a situation better, because
it just destroys, especially men's, it just destroys their lives when it comes in.
Wholeheartedly, it makes you second guess yourself at everything. You know, episode 1 I spoke about the fact of being a dad, and how, you know, there's so many claims of people, like, don't get me wrong, it's a dangerous world out there. There is a lot of paedophilia and there's a lot that goes on. But there's so many claims of it as well. You know, there's so many things. If you're called a paedophile, it is, along with rapist, the worst thing you can be called. The worst thing, like the worst claim that can be made against you. You know, and I've had it before. My daughter will want me to get in a bath with her. I'm there, pants on, t-shirt on, like with a flannel, like trying to keep yourself a distance, because I'm like, what if anybody sees this? What are they going to think? You know, what's society? It's my daughter. If my daughter wants to get in a bath with me, she should be able to get in a bath with me. But I can't mentally do it, because I'm terrified of what people are going to think, what claims people are going to make. You know, something we spoke about massively in the episode 1 of The Bearded Way of Life comes back to societal views. It ruins people's lives.
Yeah. I mean, I know someone who is quite close to me who did get raped, and they are so scared about not being believed, they won't go to the police. And I know the person who did it, and I have to walk past him every sort of month or so, and that takes some very fucking strong self-control not to say anything or do anything. And I think it's like even for women who are scared to speak out when something has actually happened, just do it. Because they're just gonna get away with it again and again if you don't say anything like that. And again, going back to like bringing everyone into a whole, like that shit fucks with your mental health big time. And like this person did come close to suicide, and it's who I actually gave your journal to, and I believe it is helping them quite well. So like the work you've done is actually helping people outside of like your circle as well, which is,
and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. You know, that's why you do what you do as well. It's about spreading that message. It's about getting people talking, getting people accepting. You know, acceptance is the hardest in mental health, in whether you've been sexually assaulted, whether you've been physically assaulted, whether you've been domestic abuse. If you can accept your situation, you can overcome it. You know, and that's the biggest. That's why we're both doing what we want to do. You know?
And I know we both primarily cater for like men's mental health advocates, but we're not just about men's mental health. It's like it's everyone. as a whole. Like, even there can be women out there who are really struggling and don't want to say anything.
Yeah.
Because they got kids and they don't want to show their kids what they're going through.
No.
And it's a crazy time for people suppressing everything inside. And you always get told when you're a kid, if you bottle it all up, it's just going to blow up in your face. And a lot of people should listen to that advice especially when they get told it as kids. Like, your mind's a sponge back then.
If we all just learn to love each other a bit more, take that bit of time, talk to each other, care for each other, the world will be a hell of a lot better place.
100%. But then it's just a thing, like, I don't know if you get like sucked into the TikTok space or like the Instagram space, and it's just someone puts something up and it's like really positive, and then you always get the people, they're like, bro, sharp. What are you on about? Like, their own insecurities are just taking over, and then they just project their own insecurities onto tearing people down. And it's just, that's the sad world that we live in nowadays.
Yeah. I've been fortunate so far, but I think that's mainly due to the fact that at the minute my reach and my network is relatively small. Where I'm trying to grow my audience organically, and I'm not just trying to push out, because I want people to be genuinely interested and want to be involved. I've been lucky that my feedback has been positive. You know, people might have comments, might have constructive criticisms, but it's been positive. I know it's coming. I know at some point the feminists are going to attack and they are going to be kicking off at me and saying, you know, why are you doing this just for men? You know, men don't need this, yada, yada, yada. I know it's coming, but you just got to mentally, you know, fortify yourself to be able to deal with it, and to understand that what you're wanting to do is the right thing, and you're not going to please everybody in life.
100%. But as soon as you realise that, your life is so much better.
Oh, massively. I am a yes man at heart. Like, I want to please everybody. I want everybody to be happy. I want to help everybody. I've had to learn that just by saying yes and trying to help somebody doesn't mean you're actually going to help them out. Sometimes saying no is 10 times more powerful than saying yes.
100%. I think to wrap up, what would your advice be to anyone going down, like, beginning the journey of wanting to take custody of their kids?
My biggest thing is do it for the right reasons. Do it because you want to give your kids the best life. Do it because them being with you is the best option for them. Do it because you want to be the best dad you can be or the best mum you can be. You know, there's far too many people that go for custody to spite their ex-partner or to spite their child's parent. If you're doing it for the wrong reasons, you shouldn't be doing it at all. In an ideal world, a parent has both mum and dad. It can't always work like that. It can't always happen like that. But if you are doing what you're doing, you're going to court, you know, you're battling for your child, for what suits your child the best, then you're on the right path.
Perfect. Sam Allen, thank you very much.
Thank you, buddy.